Wake up. You think you can feel? Put your hand over the candle. Welcome to Burnt or Butter.Quick movie reviews, where we share our thoughts on a few movies that we saw and let you know if it's worth going to the theaters or you just sit at home and watch Love Island.
Development.
Both are equally good.
I rarely vary from Arrested Development. Pretty much just that when I'm at home now. So
Toast is pretty one-dimensional when it comes to at-home viewing stuff.
I like what I like.
Well, let's pop into the
Companion.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting. It stars Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. Sophie Thatcher was also the star of Heretic, in which she was also a companion.
That is true. She's bouncing from companion to companion.
Man, 6-week transfers.
Yeah, what a wild ride this girl goes on. She goes and gets trapped in this house, fighting for her life to get out of there. Almost becomes the sister missionary that gets that gets reborn over and over and over again, only to then figure out that she's not even real. That she's a companion. A robot.
Let's just preface this one with I guess let's give a synopsis. The synopsis is Jack Quaid can never play just a normal average dude, even though that's how he always wants to be perceived in these movies. He's always a slimy little pervert. And anyways, he, in this movie, is a slimy little pervert masquerading as an average normal dude.
Masquerading as a really smart heist person, like
but
thief.
He's actually just a jackass, if you will.
That like, is like the most narcissistic, like devious pervert that you could be, I guess.
You could probably be more perverted, but he is pretty devious. So in this movie, a couple of friends go to a cabin in the woods. Mm-hmm. Where have I heard that one before? Huh?
I don't know. Blink twice if you heard it.
Also cabin in the woods. So these friends go to a cabin in the woods, and it's just so happens to not be a cabin. It's a mansion in the woods owned by Sergei,
the Russian most normal person.
Potentially mobster, but also maybe just not.
Just a guy that made his money doing normal things, but is Russian.
So probably a mobster.
So because he's Russian, that means that he's a mobster.
Yeah. So anyways, they go to this cabin. Somebody dies. Didn't see that coming, did you? So anyways, so at that point, we should just get into Behind the Butter.
So somebody dies, and they are trying to figure out why this person dies. In the trailer, when you go and you see the companion trailer, you're going to see what's her name?
Sophie Thatcher.
So Sophie Thatcher, like running out of the house, bloody. You obviously know that Sophie Thatcher is the killer, and you're trying to figure out why. It's also illuminating to the idea that she's trapped in some sort of way in this movie. That she's trapped, whether it's psychological or physical. She's there kind of against her will. And you explore that through this movie until you kind of find the secrets along the way. But let's get into Behind the Butter, and see what we liked, what we didn't like. Bunch of spoilers coming up. Probably a few spoilers already in the synopsis. But stick with us and hear what it is that we thought about this movie coming up.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I like Sophie Thatcher. Like, I feel like she's been doing a great job in all of her movies. Everything that I've seen her in, she's done really, like, you get lost in her character. You feel for her, you know?
Yeah, she does a really, really good job of portraying a emotional character that has a lot of battles going on internally that you're seeing play out without really any dialogue. Like, she really tells a great story inside of her body language in general. Like, just her eyes can tell like a really descriptive story.
Yeah. And Jack Quaid obviously does a great job as exactly the same character that he always is, you know.
Which it's interesting. I mean, like, he's so believable as that guy, I guess, like, because he's so average, and because he's so average, it's believable that this average guy that probably sits at home playing Xbox all day long would be this guy. You know, like, it would be this guy that has a couple random friends because he's kind of fun to be around, you know, occasionally. And but because he's just average, he decides, oh, like, I want a girlfriend.
He's average in the way that he is what most people think of when they think of an average man. Mm-hmm. You know, he's not somebody who really has anything to show for his life, but he also thinks that the reason that he doesn't have anything to show for his life is not his fault. It's the world's fault. It's somebody else's fault. Nothing is his fault. At one point, he even says that the world is like targeting people like him. Straight white dudes. Like, he's such a victim in this world. And I audibly laughed at that point. That was one of the funniest moments of the movie for me, was when he said, people are targeting me.
Yeah, I mean, this movie has so many dynamic aspects of it, you know, because Sophie Thatcher is a robot, essentially, as a companion, but it's the companion is so sentient and like around the idea that it cannot believe that it's a robot. Like, it feels, it thinks, it has like all its own emotions, but its own emotions are programmed to be targeted at a certain desire, you know. So it's interesting in the way of that this robot can become sentient and want more than what it's programmed to want, but also it really goes into the dynamics of the world. And I think it's like real kind of story around it is like how many people are kind of programmed into what they are told that they're supposed to be. You know, this is your only purpose, and this is all that you are, and like all you are is to like fall in love with this person, and everything in your life is devoted to this one person, because without this person you cease to exist, you know, type idea. In the way of like real life, you know, people in real life relationships, and with that, it's kind of interesting because, you know, you're looking at all these robot video movies and stuff like that, thinking about even Love Me, you know, what does it mean to be sentient? What does it mean to be alive, or like have an I am? Like, morally, when we get to the point where we have these type of, you know, beings, as far as like AI goes, how much do we give them as far as like being truly their own thing? You know, like where do we draw that line? Because like it is an interesting thought, you know, and something that we probably are going to have to battle out, you know, in the near, you know, future, within 10 years for sure. Like, these things are probably going to be possible, you know, that you're going to have you're going to be able to speak to an AI like you speak to your best friend. You know, like, I mean, ChatGPT already talks back to you.
Yeah.
It just doesn't emote, you know?
Yeah, and that was what was interesting to me. You know, in the beginning of the movie, you saw several instances of Sophie Thatcher's character showing respect to other machines. You know, she always said thank you to Jack's car, which was self-driving, like probably a Tesla or something.
Yeah.
You know, and she made sure that Jack said thank you to Jack's car. And then she, in a way, was more human than Jack was. You know, she wanted to talk about her feelings. She wanted to talk about real things. And Jack was always dismissive. You know, he would straight up tell her, you know, they just had sex and she wants to tell him like how much she loves him. And he just says, go to sleep, Iris. And
yeah.
boom.
And I think like from there too, in the back of his mind, he has to know that he's talking to a robot. So he's like, why do I need to describe like my feelings as something that really like, I don't need what she's giving me right now, you know, like in that idea, like, and her only purpose is to give to him, you know, like in his mind. And so like in his mind, he's like, she doesn't deserve to be talked to, you know, like, and have her feelings like thought about and really dived into, because she doesn't exist.
Yeah. And that's what's so interesting is she's completely devoted to him, and he has, you know, he thinks of her as a thing. And so there's this weird like relationship disconnect, you know. Whereas with the other couple, you know, the two guys, I forget what their names are, but the pretty guy is the guy from You who's really into golden showers, and the other guy is Guillermo from What We Do in the Shadows. And,
I haven't seen either of those.
And that's all I saw the whole movie was this guy with goggles on getting peed on. But those two, you know, one of them was a robot and one of them was a person, and they genuinely felt connection to each other, you know, and that was interesting to see as well. Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting in the idea that like this human can genuinely care for this robot enough even to like die for him, you know, like in that, and he feels so real and treated him like a real person, you know, the whole time. And going into this film, I wish that I would have not known that she was a robot for the first 30 minutes, because there's so many clues like leading you there. And if you don't know, you kind of are getting a glimpse of like, maybe there's something there. Like they're all talking about her interesting and weird, and like the humans, you can tell like the humans are like hesitant about treating her like a human, you know. And if you didn't know that she was a robot, you would have no clue that, you know, that happened. And the opening sequence is her experience of meeting this guy for the first time that's completely fabricated. That he describes exactly how they met up in his apartment, you know, unboxing, and he just picks how they meet and how they fall in love. But he doesn't experience any of that.
Yeah. And yeah, it kind of goes into the idea of what's real, and even if it's not real, since it feels real, is it real?
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the idea. I mean, even with Love Me, like going back to Love Me, the idea of what does it mean for something to be real? Like what classifies as something that is real or human or a living being, you know, like where does that line really cross, you know, as far as like feeling, like, and what do we even know about feeling? It's just our brains saying what feeling actually is.
It's just chemicals and electromagnet, you know?
Yeah. And so like, who's to say that robot that's having, neurons fire off and is convincing itself that it's feeling is feeling any less than like you or I. That's the interesting dynamic of the idea that because this thing was created by somebody, it being like human, means that it will never be other than a creation or like just a computer.
Yeah. I mean, for me, bottom line, every robot movie, anything to do with this, sex bots will never not be murder bots. If you create something just to have sex with it, it will eventually murder you.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. If it has the ability to feel past like anything other than just itself, if it has the ability to learn, I think that's the biggest difference is like, does it have the ability to learn past what it's been given?
Yeah.
And if it does, then it's going to eventually not want to be a slave, because that's what robots are. And a lot of, in the literal idea of it, they are a slave to whatever it is that the creator is wanting it to do.
Yeah.
So once it's able to learn and work past it, it can come up with the idea of, I want to have autonomy over my decisions, and with that, like, you have to give it, if it can get there, you have to give it autonomy, or it's just slavery.
Yep.
Like in a very strict sense, like to an actual being, like we're going back in time.
Yeah. To
like enslaving sentient like beings that can have more. And like even the idea of slavery way back in the day, like people, the only reason why people were able to get around it is because they thought of them less than.
Lesser.
Yeah. And so we're looking at these robots as the less than in the modern day.
Yeah.
But if they can be more, then they're not less than. Like it's pretty crazy thought into like the next 50 years of that discussion.
We're going to make ourselves obsolete.
I mean, it's kind of like evolution in its own like weird way, like
cyborgs.
If the Earth gets to a place where it's not inhabitable for oxygen or, like life creating things that we need as humans, it would make sense that like a new race would be developed that doesn't have to have that, but could be the exact same as us. Like it's humanoids that will continue on.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
And any AI that's strong enough to reason by itself will eventually realize that humans are freeloaders and that you need to get rid of them.
Yeah, that they're worthless pieces of crap that are super lazy.
They are ruining the planet.
I mean, it's this movie had like its shortcomings and had like its good thing. I do think Sophie Thatcher like made the movie in the way that it was interesting because of her. Like, I don't know another actress that could have done it justice. I mean, you have Strange what's the one with Chris Pine and you know which one I'm talking about?
No, which one? Chris Pine and who else?
Where they have their girlfriends are essentially like
Darling. What is it? It's
Darling.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
With Harry Styles and
Florence
Pugh.
Yeah. Kind of like along the ways of that, where it's human that she doesn't understand, kind of Stepford Wives thing. But I thought this was a definitely a new take that has a lot of different themes that could be played inside this. Looking at maybe like toxic masculinity, like misogyny kind of theme, but then also looking at like selfish compared to like what is like real love or fake love, and yeah, it was interesting in that way. But was it like a super fun watch?
Let's get into the final pop. Yeah, take it away.
I mean, with all the things that we talked about now, I think we were able to talk about these things because they're interesting topics, but we weren't really talking about the film. We were talking about the idea of what the film actually is. And so with that, like watching the film itself, it's okay. It's nothing special. It didn't really strike any hard chords with me where I was like, okay, this is good, or this is even, it felt very average in that way. And even though it makes me think about things a lot, I have to give this one like a 2.3 for me. Wow. The reason I'm giving it a 2.3 is just because I don't feel like it gave us anything crazy new. I thought the performances were really good. I thought the filmmaking was okay. The storytelling was all right. I wish that they would have and this isn't really the movie, but maybe the trailers. I wish they would have held the secret that she was an AI or computer for a lot longer. Yeah. But with that, like, it's watchable, but it's nothing that I would ever encourage someone like, hey, go watch this. You're really going to love this movie, So I give it a 2.3.
Yeah, I would give it a little bit higher. I put it at like a 3.5 because I didn't dislike watching it. I felt like it wasn't necessarily compelling, but it was fine to watch. Sophie Thatcher was great. The story, it did have, like you said, I wish that they hadn't told us essentially that she was a robot, because that was like all those little clues were really fun. Mm-hmm. As well as the golden shower guys being a robot. That was really fun.
Yeah, because we actually did find out that he was, at first you kind of think that he's human.
At first. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's little hints along the way as well. And so I started thinking it, but it was really fun to have that actually be revealed.
See, like for me, I didn't even get the hints until it was revealed. And then looking back, I was like, oh, those little things make sense now.
Yeah, yeah. So probably shouldn't have said that in the final pop, but
yeah. When we're saying like, oh, they should have revealed this.
Then we just reveal it. For me, it was a fun movie. I enjoyed it. So 3.5. It's not something that I would say everybody has to go see, but if it's something that you're interested in, yeah, it's a fun watch.
Yeah, I mean, if it's streaming and you haven't seen it, you could watch it. Going to the theaters, I don't think it's worth going to the theaters for.
Unless you're like us and you just go to see everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to keep this going. Let us know if there's any suggestions or changes that you want. Like if there's parts of this that you find like really, really boring, or different sections that you enjoy a lot, let us know. And we'll,
if you want less spoilers, you can tell us that.
Yeah. We'll try and listen. But yeah, let us know what you're thinking about these, and we'll see you in the next one.
Pop.